Hi, everyone. This is Evan with Team Evan, and I'm here with our latest segment of 7 with Evan, and I am incredibly excited about my guest today, Sherri Leopold. Her and I have been running together for just over a year, and we have such an amazing story. We actually met on an airplane, and so she is here to share with you more about her passion and everything that she has been building and creating. And yeah, so welcome, Sherri.
Thank you for having me, Evan. And we do have fun together. So I'm so excited to be here with you.
Adventures with Sherri and Evan.
You betcha. Hashtag that sucker.
Yes. So Sherri, why don't you start by telling the people of Team Evan a little about yourself?
I am married and have 3 children. They're all grown. I'm expecting my first grandbaby in May, so I'm super excited about that. I love cats and animals in general, and I love helping people. That's one of the things that I have, I think, always done probably my whole life. And it just so happens that one of the places that I have fueled that passion is in the direct selling and network marketing industry, which is why I was on the airplane when we met. I was going to a trip that I had earned in Las Vegas, and was lucky enough to sit next to you.
It was quite remarkable and definitely part of our plan. But
yeah.
For us to sit next to each other. And it's funny because I was also going to a conference for a different company in the direct selling world. So, and we got to chatting, and here we are a little over a year later doing completely different things than direct selling. So,
and just more. I mean, I think that's the incredible thing is that you and I are both doing things together and both doing those things still, but we have expanded our platforms, which is so, it's just so amazing to me, both to watch you, expand yours, which is obviously part of my passion. Is I love seeing that in others and being part of that encouragement process and helping in that growth process, but also expanding my own, because I have created my own platform since we met, that I'm very excited about, as you well know. So, and sort of just in its new territory for me. So that's exciting. Change is good.
It is good. It's very exciting, and it's been really fun to watch you build your platform as I also build mine. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your passion and platform and things like that?
What I started, actually, it kind of really came to about June of last year, of 2018. I really put it technically on paper with a name in August, but it's actually called Stop Self-Bullying, What to Do When the Bully Is You. And that is all encompassed under my, I guess if you want to call it, umbrella platform of Dream Big with Sherri, which is really just to help people of all ages and all stages live their best life. And I feel like people have a tough time living that best life if they're spending a big part of that life beating themselves up. And so through a series of different things, it sort of led me to that sort of hyper focus of really helping people have the tools to be able to get a handle on why they do that, acknowledging why they would self-bully, and also how to change that behavior and really evolve, which is my whole platform of to live your best life. It's really difficult to do that if you're spending time saying, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm broken, broke, whatever words that we're using to kind of batter ourselves with. It's very hard to stand in greatness when you're standing in the mire of self-defeating words.
That's so true. And I love your platform because bullying is such a huge topic in, as you know, I'm a teacher, and so in the realm of education, and I think even outside of education, it is just becoming such a huge and important thing to be discussed. And I think we often overlook how we bully ourselves.
Exactly, which is kind of my point. Everybody is all up in arms. Oh my gosh, bullying, it's so terrible. But nobody actually stops and takes a second to talk to the person who was bullied to see what they do with that information that was downloaded in them. You know, like, we want to go after the person that did the assault, which is great, and that's fine, and they probably need help. But I think the more insidious problem in our society is that we all have issues with people who have bullied us. Many times it's our own family when we were little, friends, people that we should have been able to quote unquote trust. And now we're sort of damaged with those words and those things that were said to us. And we just continue to do it to ourselves. And nobody was addressing that issue. Like, I went out and tried to research it and see what I could find. And the thing is, it isn't that maybe people aren't aware that it happens, because you hear people talk about self-defeating words and things like that. But what I saw the lack of, and where I felt the need to step in, was, it's one thing to identify it. It's a completely separate thing to say, hey, okay, so now that we know what it is, how do we make an impact in changing this? That's the action step is missing, in my opinion. And that's the gap that I wanted to fill with the book, with, as you know, I'm working on the curriculum for preschoolers right now. I'm starting with preschoolers. But that's the gap I want to fill. I want to be that leader that steps forward and say, hey, we've had enough. Here's some tools. Let's implement this and get a handle on it. You know, it's time to put a stop to this. It'll never be completely eradicated. We're human beings. We're going to have bad days, but we can slow this insidious growth of self-hatred and self-abuse. I mean, and I feel like the only way to do it is to teach people and give them the tools to do it.
And I think you said something, and that you're starting the curriculum with preschoolers, and I think that's so awesome, because those negative thoughts and those negative things that we're told start at such a young age. So if we can arm those young children with the tools to say, wait, stop, like, that's not true about me.
Right.
I can imagine.
As my phrase is, no thank you, I don't receive that.
Yeah, and I think if we can start at such a young age, how will those children be different from how they grew up when they become adults? I just think that's so awesome. And and
I look at that and think, how much easier it would be for teachers in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade when you got delivered a class load of very self-confident, self-aware little humans, instead of ones who are always searching outside to just know I'm okay. Just the whatever way I show up, I'm okay. And I think that that training begins very young, which is why, you and I have talked, why I felt such a pressing need to start at that preschool age.
Yeah, it's so important. I just think you're onto something huge here, and I commend you, and I'm so proud of you for taking this on. Not only because it's a huge undertaking. I mean, changing the mindset of adults is challenging.
Yes. True, which is why you start with the preschoolers. Exactly. But I also think, which actually leads to another thing, and one of the other components that I'm actually going to be working on, probably simultaneously with some other things, is really a parenting component. because you got to think about this. We can implement this with 3-year-olds, right? Like, we can teach this to them, but that's not really going to show up into fruition until those kids get older and grow up. If we can't go back and give the same toolbox to a 25-year-old brand new parent, or a 40-year-old parent who now has or grandkids, we have to somewhere impart these tools to people who aren't in preschool, right? So that's why I'm kind of going at both ends of the spectrum, because I'm really, and hoping it'll meet in the middle somewhere so that we can get some, I don't know, I can't want to say get a handle on it, but we're going to have to get some control of some of these things. And the only way to really make a big impact is to catch them when they're young, but also to help teach the new parents how to help encourage and enforce, if you will, and encourage the things that they're going to be learning in that curriculum, right? And I always say it's great to provide shelter and clothing and food and all the things for a child, but the most important thing, I believe, with all my heart, is that you can teach that child to love themselves and their own unique qualities, however they show up in the world. Tall, short, fat, skinny, freckles, black, whatever way, shape, color, whatever you show up, is loving yourself that way. And really putting the weight of how you feel about yourself on how you feel about yourself, not what the reflection is to other people. So a lot of retraining in the parent space and above age.
I think it's so great that you're encompassing the village, as we sometimes say. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. So how this passion that you've discovered is so important. How did it come to you? How did you find it?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like it was something that's been brewing a really long time, actually. I can see it when I look back throughout my life. I'm going to be 54 in May. And, and I look back in certain things that I've done, certain jobs, even in high school, certain things that I did in college. I think that passion for helping people was always there. I'm very solution oriented. So I like to problem solve. I mean, that's kind of a thing for me. I kind of sort of get a charge out of it. So I think that part of my personality, along with seeing, now I'll tell you really what the catalyst honestly was, that actually, I always say that forced the download completely from God to my head, because I feel like it was downloaded in me, in my spirit, literally, because I had the name of the book was put in my head literally when I was driving in a car, and I was on about a 10-minute drive to a networking meeting for one of my businesses. And so I was listening to the radio, and they had come on and they had said that Anthony Bourdain was dead, and that, they were kind of talking about his career. And this was about maybe a month after Kate Spade committed suicide. And I had an out loud conversation with myself. I was driving by myself. I'm sure you're shocked. But I was literally talking out loud, and I was like, I do not understand this. These two people had money, they had fame, they had the dream jobs. They both had families that loved them. They both had tons of friends. They both seemingly had everything going for them, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, so did Michael Jackson, and so did Prince, and so did Whitney Houston. I'm like Robin Williams, all these people, and I'm like laundry list. I'm like, what is wrong in this picture? What's the common denominator? And I was like, they had to be hating on themselves. That was it. I mean, it occurred to me that was the common denominator. So like while everything should have been great and should have been lined up and amazing by what people on the outside looking in, the one thing when we're looking at somebody else is we can't see what they're thinking about themselves, right? So that's the one common thing with all of them was they couldn't shut up what I call IV, which stands for IV intravenous, which is the little bag, and their bag was kind of filled with crap. I suck, I'm rotten, I'm a failure, I can't do anything right. Whatever's in your IV and running in the vein, you got to control what's in that bag. And sometimes people in your network like to put things in your IV, and that's where you come in with the no thanks, I don't receive that. And I talk about that in the book. That's one of the things I think when people get in that position. I was driving in that car and I was thinking, what is wrong with society? Why is this happening? And I'm like, I just kept thinking, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. And that's literally where I feel like I sort of accepted the, if you will, the job of really pushing out the stop self-bullying movement. Like it was so in my spirit, it just flooded me. I'm like, I have to do this. And I remember I got out of the car, it was very quiet at the meeting. I didn't hardly say anything to anybody. And after the meeting, I was talking with a friend of mine, and she said, how you been? I haven't seen you for a while. I said, great. I said, I think I'm decided I'm going to write a book. And she goes, you are? And so she said, what's it about? And so I told her, and she goes, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I was like, she was the first person that I had told, and I had said it out loud to. I was very sure of it already, which was really weird because it was the first time I'd thought of it. But then I realized after I talked to her and I was on my way back home, I started thinking about, I think I've always cared, like how people talked about themselves, like referred to themselves. Like I'm the person who would go, why do you say that? Or, things like that. I would call people on that. And so I think that's always been in me. But I think hearing that on the radio and thinking, oh my gosh, this has to stop. And my immediate, like, what can I do? I'm like, what could I do? And the only thing that came to me was, the people have got to stop self-bullying. Is this what it is? Doing it to ourselves. We can't shut our head up.
You are really good at calling people out, because I know there have been a few times where I've said some things that have been negative about myself, and you're like, wait, stop. That's not true. What are you doing? Or, I remember times where I'm like, Sherri, I'm so nervous. Like when I went up at the Run conference and shared my dream, kind of like you shared your dream with your friend at the networking meeting. And I'm like, I'm nervous. And you're like, nervousness is just excitement.
That's right. It's all in what you call it. Yeah. See, and that was the thing. It was like I could have said, oh my gosh, I'd be nervous if I was you too. How would that have helped you? That was the thing. I had to alert you to what the reason that you were nervous was, what you were telling yourself about it.
Exactly.
It wasn't necessary. And the thing was, what you called it wasn't going to change what happened or anything like that. I mean, that was just the thing. And that's what I'm talking about, like in the book. And I'm going to be doing some webinars and things like this. I really want to teach people, listen, you only get two things in your whole life that you get to control: what you think and what you do. That's it. That's it. I can't control what you think and you do. I can only control what I think and what I do. Which also, I can control what I think about what you do. So, but it still goes back to I can only control my thoughts.
And just because you're controlling your thoughts about what you think about me or what I'm doing, that's not going to change what I do. Correct.
What's the old saying? Like, it's like whatever what is it? Drinking poison doesn't kill the person you're mad at, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't help. It only poisons you. You know, you're the one that perishes. So, you know what? That's the same thing. You know, what's in the IV bag that's feeding you, that's nourishing your body from head to toe, every part of you is right here and is coming in throughout your body and circulating. So whatever's in that IV bag better be good. And trust me, you're the one that's putting it on the hook, and you're the one that's refilling it. Other people try, but you still get to say yes or no.
Definitely.
No thanks, I don't receive that.
I love it. So it's obvious that you are living your passion every single day. What keeps you motivated to do this?
You know, I think what keeps me motivated to keep pushing forward is I long for the day when you can walk into any room, any workplace, and be surrounded with people who love themselves exactly with who they are. When you walk into a classroom and it's not 4 kids that are really confident and want to raise their hand, it's every kid is confident enough to raise their hand on day one. Like, that's when you'll know you've made that impact. You know, that those kids, they are totally okay with who they woke up as today, and standing in the power of me, which you know, or you're very familiar with that because it's the name of my conference. And literally that's what it is. That's how you'll know when everybody you know shows up and says, hey, you can say anything you want about me and I'm going to be still okay. That's how you know that you've got there. But that's the ultimate goal. And that's why that is so important to me, that, like, I'm not stopping for anything or anyone, because ultimately each one of us deserves to actually have that personal power and stand in the power of me every single day and live the life they love every single minute of it. Every one of us deserves that. And so that's what pushes me every day, because we do deserve it. And there's a whole lot of people that are barely getting by. And sometimes, I mean, I've actually even read stories of people who don't have any mirrors in their house. They can't stand to look at themselves. I'm like, it's hard for me to even understand that. And I'm like, there has to come a day where we don't have that. That, you know, people are just okay being themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So basically, I want to live in a land of love. How about that?
I love it. I want to as well.
Absolutely.
So, what has been your greatest success with living your passion?
Gosh.
I know it's new, so it's something you're still building, but.
You know, I think somebody that I've been mentoring kind of the last 4 months, and watching the transition that she has gone through in this last 4 months has affirmed for me that everything that I'm doing has been worthwhile and on track. And now I know, because it's made very clear sense to her. And I've seen just miraculous changes in her personal life as a result, and how she feels about herself, how she talks about herself. And I think the ultimate icing, if you will, on that cake is actually one of the things that I have, and it's on down in the future, but I want to be able to train people to share the power of me and the stop self-bullying. So I don't want to be the only voice of it, so I want to train people to do that. And she said to me, I want to be one of your trainers.
How awesome.
I know, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Don't make me cry. So I was like, that was like, to me, that was like, wow, that's awesome. I mean, like, that's growth. And to me, that is so incredibly exciting. And if I guess maybe that's one of the things that like pushes me to keep going, because I know that it's making an impact, and that's just one person that I see. I want to impact millions of people in that same way. So.
And you're going to.
Oh,
I know it.
I'm excited.
So what has been your most challenging part about living your passion and this whole stop self-bullying movement that you're starting?
I think some of it is just, it's not the content, because I feel like I have very good command of that. Actually, ironically, it's just the things that I've not done before. Like, and we've talked about this, like not knowing how to publish your book and, you know, do webinars. And it's like the learning curve is sharp on some of those things. So it's more sort of the technical things of trying to get myself, you know, in the space that I feel confident to deliver those things and, you know, get command of them, because I've not done them before, which I do love change and I love learning. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's probably been the most challenging thing. And also having to rely on other people for pieces of the things that I can't do, like the formatting, you know, like we've talked about this, but like the pieces, like I have the written part good, but I still have to have other people do things, and I'm not used to doing that because I'm like a super self-starter. So that part is been a challenge for me to let go and say, okay, I hold my baby gently, you know, don't hurt my baby, kind of thing. Take good care of my baby.
The life of an entrepreneur, right?
Right. Right. So anyway, that's kind of been the biggest challenge, I think, is just having to rely on other people to do pieces of things that, you know, I don't know anything about. So.
Yeah, and when they're holding your content in the palm of their hands and you're crossing your fingers that everything
Yes.
turns out okay and they don't
Yes.
and they don't mess up everything you've worked for. I definitely
Yes.
understand how challenging that is, and I'm sure, because we're very similar, that in some of these cases it's lighting a fire in you to learn how to do it yourself, because I know when I went to publish my book, I was like, I'm not paying for this again. I'm going to figure out how to do it again, or how to do it myself. So
Yes.
I know.
There's that part.
Yeah. So my last question for you, what advice do you have for somebody who's trying to search for their own passion?
You know, I think we like to do things that we're good at. So I kind of think sometimes you need to stop and take a self-inventory on, number one, what things are you good at? You know, are you good at connecting with people? Are you good at helping people? Are you good at, I don't care if it's embroidery. It doesn't matter what it is, but finding, my gosh, can you hear that echo? Oh, okay, whatever. So finding what you're good at, and then also really connecting what you're good at in a way that you can spend time you love doing. So, you know, like with the embroidery, the knitting, I don't care what it is. I believe anything that you love doing can probably be a business. That's me, and just finding where those things, because when you're really passionate about it, you really don't see it as work so much as a labor of love.
Definitely.
So
that's awesome advice.
Cat. Different one.
So I want to thank you, Sherri, for coming on 7 with Evan and sharing about your really exciting movement, Stop Self-Bullying, as well as your sharing with our team Evaneries all of the exciting things you have going on and what you're truly passionate about. And you know, I love you, and I appreciate everything that you do, and I'm so excited to see you run with this important movement. So thank you so much for coming on 7 with Evan today.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. And I'm so thrilled to have you by my side doing it. So I appreciate it.
Definitely. Well, thank you,
Mhm.
and have a great evening.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, if people want to connect with me, they can connect with me on sherrileopold.com.
Awesome. And I'll
Thank
post that in the description of our 7 with Evan tonight too. So
Awesome. Thank you.
can connect and
And
follow
you know I'm your
Sherri.
biggest cheerleader, so.
And I'm your biggest cheerleader. So
Yay!